Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about the Georgia Bulldogs. Obviously, we know what Georgia is. They're always going to be at the top of the recruiting rankings. They're always going to be at the top of college football on the field. And yes, while they have 2 losses this year, they're still Georgia. They're still the Bulldogs. They're going to recruit at a high level. And that's right where Kirby Smart has them. Currently, number 2 overall in the recruiting rankings. And there's a legit chance they finish number 1. And if I had to put money on a team, I would pick Georgia to finish number 1 as things stand right now. So we're just going to take a quick look at their class, who's committed right now, guys they might have to hold on to, and then some prospects that are still out there they're going after. Just put the cherry on top of what's an amazing class to this point. Now, you can see Georgia has 5 5-stars committed, led by Elijah Griffin, the number 1 defensive lineman, and Isaiah Gibson, the number 1 edge. Both of these guys from Georgia. Their recruitments were kind of wild. Gibson, one-time USC commit. Griffin, it really came down to Miami, Georgia, USC as well. Ultimately, expect them to sign and become Bulldogs. I mean, Georgia does this year in, year out. They go out, they get top 3, top 4 defensive linemen, edge guys. But in recent years, they have not gotten the best players in Georgia, surprisingly. This year, they have capitalized in a huge way. As you can see, Griffin's number 1. Gibson's 2. Williams, the number 1 tight end in America. What's new? Georgia got a number 1 tight end. He's also from Georgia. And then Zayden Walker, number 1 linebacker. He's also from Georgia. And then we go to Justice Terry. He's from Georgia. And he's the 3rd player from Georgia. He's not committed. We'll get to that later. So looking at their commits, then you see Taylor Taylor, wide receiver. What has been the talk about Georgia this year and years past? They have not recruited the receiver position as well as you would expect a back-to-back national championship team to do. They haven't really hit the portal. They have gotten guys in the portal, but they really haven't hit on those guys as you would expect them to. Now, Taylor is a guy. He's obviously a 5-star wide receiver. And then you also have C.J. Wiley, another Georgia guy. He's a 78th overall player. This is big time. Right, you look at Wiley, we got 6'4", 195. Taylor, expect him to be more of an inside guy. And that's pretty good for the receiver room for Georgia. Because past classes, they have not had guys like that. Running back, they always recruit running back very well. Usmani Chroma, another guy from Georgia. They have him as the 4th running back in the class. Then you come down here, they have another running back, Bo Walker. No surprise, another Georgia player. He's a 4-star running back, a guy that will run you over. And that's the type of running back Bo Walker is. Just to finish this class off, we got Ryan Montgomery, their quarterback commit. He has missed almost his entire senior season. Therefore, Georgia is going after multiple other quarterbacks. Jaren Kiwe, Segapolatelli, a Cal commit. They're going after him. But also Julian Lewis is the guy they're going after. Lewis, one-time USC commit. He just decommitted not too long ago. This is going to come down to Colorado, Georgia, and Indiana. Now, a lot of people, including Tom Loy, who put a prediction in here, expect him to become a Colorado Buffalo. But the interesting thing is he took a late visit to Georgia. And I think Kirby Smart is selling to him, like, hey, you're going to come in and you're going to battle for the starting job next season. Yes, we have a quarterback committed in this class, but due to injury concerns, who knows how that's going to pan out. For Indiana, Tino Sinceri, a long-time influence on Julian Lewis. That goes all the way back when he was in 7th, 8th grade, going to camps. And that was when Tino was at Florida State, I believe. Julian Lewis popped up on the radar. And ever since then, it's been a pretty good relationship that they have going on there. And that's really the only reason Indiana is still in this. And expect that to be the case until we hit signing day here in about 2 weeks. Yeah, Julian Lewis definitely on the radar for Georgia. I want to say they're first. They're at best second behind Colorado. But nonetheless, they are going after a quarterback. Back to the class, though. Offensive line, Juwan Gaston. Big time get. They kept him home. 6'7", 345. You can't find that size really anywhere else in the country besides down south. And he's a great athlete at that size as well. Another wide receiver, Thomas Blackshear down here. Another 4-star wideout. It's almost evident that Kirby Smart knows the weakness on his team, right? He knows that he has to get more explosive playmakers on the outside, right? You lose Brock Bowers, you lose Ladd McConkey, and that's going to hurt your team. A lot of teams, when they lose great players, don't reload the year after. Georgia, they reload just about every other position but receiver. And I think this recruiting class is a good indication that Kirby Smart is taking it pretty seriously. Because they also have Tyler Williams down there as well. 4-star. You have Ethan Barber, another tight end from Georgia, the 11th ranked tight end. I mean, they're doing everything they can to refill the receiver room and the tight end room. And I'd say they're doing a pretty good job. So Georgia, they got 25 commits, second overall. We talked about Julian Lewis, but this is the biggest name out there for the Bulldogs that they're still going after. And he's one of the best players in America. Justice Terry, like we mentioned earlier, the third best player from Georgia. And this is an absolute stud on the defensive line. When you watch his film, I mean, he pops off the tape. You can see why he's being sought after from Auburn, Texas, Bama, Florida State, Georgia. And Ohio State was in there. They offered. I mean, this guy, every big-time team's going after him. Oregon's in there. USC also was in there as well. So this is a big-time player. Now, the interesting thing is here, Auburn has recently emerged as a contender, if you want to say that. They're getting a visit, which I think is important. But Georgia, I mean, they're the heavy favorite. They've been the favorite for him for quite some time. And as you can see, he does have 5 predictions to end up at Georgia. It's just weird because there's so many teams still in this. A lot of teams feel pretty good. I mean, even Alabama, they think they're still in this. Texas most definitely thinks they're still in this. And I think a big selling point with a lot of these teams is, hey, Terry, like, you're probably going to play early on for us, whether it's year 1 or you're a starter year 2. You go to Georgia, you might be sitting a couple years behind not only guys in your class, but guys in previous classes as well. Now, why I think Georgia is using that to their advantage is they're just pointing back to the 2021 and the 2022 Georgia Bulldogs, the defensive linemen that they had, and say, you're just going to be in the rotation. We're going to send about 6 or 7 of you guys to the NFL. So it's going to be really interesting how Justice Terry values playing time over development, per se. I mean, you go to Auburn, you'd have to assume he's going to play next year, right? Play right away. And honestly, he'd be a difference maker. I mean, you look at Dylan Stewart at South Carolina, like that type of impact as a true freshman. Colin Simmons at Texas, same type of thing. But ultimately, I think Georgia's going to get Justice Terry. That's why I said they have a legit chance of finishing number 1. I think he's a big part of that. Running back, Anthony Rogers. Now this one, Ohio State's probably going to get him on signing day. It's going to be Georgia versus Ohio State. They're the 2 teams with a hat on the table. He did decommit from Alabama not too long ago. But yeah, it sounds like it's just going to be Ohio State, Georgia, and I expect the Buckeyes to get him there. We already mentioned Georgia does have a few running backs already committed anyway, so I mean, this isn't a huge miss, although he is the 9th running back in the nation. And then lastly, guys are going after, we have Chase Linton. And as I'm recording this, you can see he commits in just over 2 hours. He is the 11th ranked edge. He has a lot of predictions to Georgia. You have to assume he's going to end up in the class. If you really look at things, I mean, they're getting 247 has him as the 4th edge, but the 11th edge rusher, and you go back to their class, the 1st edge, 1st D-line, 1st linebacker, Terry's the number 2 D-line. They're supposed to get him, the 9th edge, and you get the 11th edge rusher. I mean, this is just your typical Georgia Bulldogs recruiting class. Okay, so looking at the class calculator here for Georgia, I added Justice Terry and Chase Linton, 2 guys you have to feel pretty confident about ending up being Bulldogs. And this puts them at 310.83 as of right now. And you look at the class standings, I mean, this would give them a significant lead over Ohio State. We're talking over 7 points, and that's a big deal. And that average would be going up. It'd probably be 2nd. Right now they're 3rd, but it'd probably be 2nd. Oregon's still at 94.65. They only have 16 commits, but yet they're top 8. But yeah, you have to expect Georgia's, I mean, that could go even higher. You look at Terry, he's at 99, and Linton's at 94. I mean, there is a chance that they could end up with the highest average commit ranking. But yeah, they'd easily have the number 1 class if those 2 guys do go on board, and they finish with 27 commits. barring they don't lose any guys on signing day. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Georgia fans, let me know down below what you think about your recruiting class. Guys that you still think you can get, not just Lynn or Terry, other guys I may have missed. Before you guys head out, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the like as well, as we're on the road to 1,000 subs. And it's greatly appreciated if you subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.